So for our refinery, we're aiming to make cobalt sulfate, which will go into the battery supply chain, EV market or LCO market for portable electronics like your phone and batteries. But we'll also be making cobalt metal, which will then go into the super alloys and defense and hard-facing.
Cobalt Blue has secured a major feedstock supply contract with Glencore International, covering up to 50% of the cobalt hydroxide needs for its Kwinana Cobalt refinery over an initial 3-year term. To discuss this latest milestone is CEO Andrew Tong. Andrew, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you, Jonathan. It's been a long week. Good to chat on the Friday.
Hopefully it's a good weekend. Now, talk us through this contract and what other steps now need to happen in order to reach a final investment decision.
Great. Long-term investors will realize that we signed an agreement with Iwatani about 6 to 8 weeks ago. That agreement lays out all the milestones that we need to achieve to get to FID. We're targeting FID at the end of this year. Those milestones cover feed agreements, offtake agreements, the requirement for Cobalt Blue to make cobalt sulfate to the required specifications for some of those agreements, and of course, getting financing support for the project.
And why are you importing feedstock from Africa?
Look, historically, we would have loved to have Australian feedstock into the plant. That was our original aim with our Broken Hill mine, but Broken Hill mine just isn't proceeding with low cobalt prices at the moment. Then we were working on some other feedstocks from the nickel industry in Western Australia. However, they've been pretty challenged over the last 12 months, so they've had to expand further out. Our long-term commitment is to be taking cobalt and nickel from within Australia, but right now that opportunity doesn't exist. So we've had to look further afield. In terms of the global cobalt market, last year 76% of global cobalt came from the DRC, so we need to engage with the DRC.
And how do you know, let's swing it back to Glencore, how do you know that you can treat Glencore's material?
Well, last year, in anticipation of supply constraint issues with other commodities, nickel and cobalt, we went and purchased a 5-ton sample from Glencore last year. We've processed that through our demonstration plant in Broken Hill. We've produced cobalt sulfate and cobalt metal from that material. So we're very confident on taking that, being able to process it. And when we did our feasibility work, we actually tried about 5 or 6 different feedstocks from different suppliers, all commercially available. So we've really done a lot of the test work, ground level test work, and very confident that we can take it and treat it.
So Andrew, let's talk about products now. What products will the refinery produce and who are going to sell them to?
Well, long-term observers of the cobalt market will realize the last 10 to 15 years, it's really been driven by the EV uptake. However, EV demand is a little bit slower right at the moment. But cobalt demand is growing. Year on year, it continues to grow. There's been a huge uplift in cobalt requirements. Where that sits at the moment is that EVs are taking a certain amount, but there's still growth in super alloys and defense and other applications like that. So for our refinery, we're aiming to make cobalt sulfate, which will go into the battery supply chain, EV market or LCO market for portable electronics like your phone and batteries. But we'll also be making cobalt metal, which will then go into the super alloys and defense and hard-facing metals.
So Andrew, a lot to look forward to here. What are the short-term goals now?
Look, we're developing this project as a joint venture with Iwatani Corporation. So we're always conscious of their requirements in this. They're going to be a 30% holder, we'll be a 70% holder of this project. For them, there's very strong progress that we need to make within Japan, assisting them on the offtake and smoothing all of that out. So there'll be a lot of that work over the next 6 months or so. On our side, collectively with Iwatani, we're really approaching a lot of the debt agencies at the moment, trying to secure letters of support for this project. So this year really is all about financing. How do we get some support on the debt side? And then that'll open up conversations on the equity side.
Andrew, good luck with it all, and we'll speak again shortly. Thanks for your time.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan.